Andrew, you go.
Okay, my name's Andrew Potter. I'm going to be performing the role of Vodnik in Rusalka.
My name is Elias Grandy. I am the conductor for this production.
My name is Karen Vuong, and I am Rusalka.
My name's Kevin Ray, and I'm playing the prince in Rusalka. So what should we start chatting about? Yeah, we have this lovely
Let's
coffee
go with the
and-
storyline first,
Okay.
no?
Okay.
And I think since you're all singers, I think this is your part.
Yeah.
To just tell what the story is about.
Don't worry, we'll get him back shortly.
Yeah.
I'm just going to lean back here, relax.
Why don't you
Why
start
don't you-
since you're on stage?
Oh, start
So you
comment.
said you are Rusalka, so tell us.
Okay,
Who is Rusalka?
Rusalka. Okay, so this is interesting. Rusalka, traditionally, before this was written, Rusalkas were actually considered like, for like kind of fertility, like spirits, and they would bring water to crops, and they were actually like is it benevolent? Not malevolent. Benevolent,
Yeah.
benign beings.
Oh.
And then it wasn't until like, I think a century later or something like that, that it got turned into that Rusalkas were the spirits of drowned women who would
Yeah, bring
bring them down
the sailors down, yeah?
because they were lonely.
Yeah.
And that's when they became like kind of malevolent creatures. So it's interesting because in Dvorak's Rusalka,
Yeah.
she starts off as I would imagine a benevolent, benign creature.
Yeah, I think there's...
And
I
then
think-
by the end, she
yeah.
turns into the more modern take on Rusalka.
Fascinating.
the scary...
See,
That's
I checked
really
my
cool,
Wikipedia
actually.
in preparation for this. But Rusalka basically, so she's a water nymph spirit. She's often depicted as a mermaid, and she has fallen in love with Kevin, the prince.
She's seen Kevin.
Because
There's no other way.
because he has been swimming in her lake,
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
quite a pond, lake.
Yeah.
And she's completely fallen head over heels for him. So Little Mermaid-ish in that she asks her dad for permission. He says no, and then fine. Then like,
He doesn't say fine.
what does he say?
He relents. He relents, right? So something interesting. I'll piggyback really quickly off of what you said. Vodnik in the Czech lore is actually not a benevolent creature at all. He is there's a reason that some renditions call him a water goblin, because Vodnik would swim to the surface, drag people down, and then put their souls in ceramic jars in his like little lair.
That makes sense.
But what's interesting is the setting in this particular story is he is very fatherly, very benevolent. The one time that you see him get really spicy is in Act 3, which we're cutting. It's the one time that you see his like really ferocious side come out because they're making fun of Rusalka behind her back. And so it's very interesting that in this setting it does depart a little bit from the actual folklore of what Vodnik was. What was the question?
Oh, the story of Rusalka was the actual question.
Yeah. So
I find it interesting what you say, because you say he's very fatherly, but is that is only for Rusalka, isn't it?
I think that's what we see. You know, in my at least in my mind, I think that he does kind of have this benevolent fatherly spirit for all of the water sprites and
not for the
all of
humans.
the
That seems to be what this
But the
story
issue
focuses
is
on.
when he hears of humans, he does get very triggered. And this happens in our first interaction together on stage. She says, you know, you've helped me become a human. And then Vodnik does get, bristly. So he cares for all of the sprites and all of the nature beings, but when it comes to men, humans, he's not into it. So I remember what started this whole diatribe is you said that he gives in. I don't think that he gives in. I have a 16-year-old son, and so I've talked about this a little bit. When you have a child that has decided that they're going to do a thing, as a parent, oftentimes you have to just go, you're going to do this, so I have to take my hands off and let this play out. So he knows that Rusalka is going to essentially give her entire life and eternity to this issue. And so he is an issue, and he tries to stop that from happening. But like any parent, he realizes, I love my daughter, and you're going to do what you're going to do. And so that's why, all of a sudden, we get this one motif that keeps being repeated over and over again. Uboha, Rusalko, Beleda, Bieda, Bieda. And it's him saying, woe unto you, woe unto you. And we hear that recur many, many times throughout the opera.
So that is basically father-daughter or parent-teenager theme we have in the opera. It also has set up in the first act, in Act 1. And then at the end you come in, Kevin, and what's your story?
Yeah, well, I think that in a way, Vodnik was kind of right to be concerned about Rusalka's interaction with the human world.
Why is that?
Well, I think it's in the story. He knows that Rusalka won't fit into the prince's world, the prince's society.
Right.
She'll end up in some situation where she has to act properly, or and in the story with everything that happens with the witch, obviously she gives up her voice, and that's how it all goes wrong. But he knows on a grander scale that the laws of nature that govern the natural world don't govern humans and their communities and their rules and the sort of things that society sets up. And so that in that way, the whole story and Rusalka's inability to fit in with the prince's world is about our own struggling with human society and just relationships and the constructs that everything around us set up for us to struggle with. And basically when the prince continues to be attracted to this sort of mystical force in the woods, he can't resist it, and he wants to go back to it, even though he knows it will lead him to be sort of an outcast from his society. But he wants to go back to that.
Does he know that, you think? Is that like a conscious thing, or is it actually something that he discovers then later on, that by following his instinct or his emotions or his that he brought himself in the situation?
Yeah, I think it's both. I think he has an inkling that what he's dabbling into is a little dangerous. But when the princess shows up, and she reminds him of his duty to his family and to his house and to the event that he's giving in that moment, and he sort of snaps back into form and almost without thinking, sort of delivers the part of a good member of society, which then is sort of heartbreaking for Rusalka, because she thought that they had something.
Good member of society that cheats on Rusalka.
But that's what I'm saying, and that is the sort of struggle of being human, right? We snap into these behaviors that are automatic almost, without thinking, and then anytime we try to sort of stray from that or do something different, our peers are like, "Oh, are you sure you want to do that?" But so Rusalka is trying to attract him in that way, and he wants to go there, but then
something's just off.
Yeah,
It should be mentioned that like when Rusalka meets Yeji Baba, the witch, Ursula, whatever, Yeji Baba, Jill Grove, she kind of lays it out for her by saying like these are the consequences if this does not work out. Not only will you be doomed, you won't be able to become a water nymph again, but you are also dooming the prince.
Right.
If his love is not true. And so second act is super high stakes.
Yeah.
And then so like when it goes down in a big way, I think.
Yeah.
But this is also where I think we see Rusalka's kind of, if I can call it, her adolescence. Because she literally is told, it's going to kill you, it's going to kill him, this is not going to end well. And then there's this great moment where Rusalka says, no, but the power of love.
Yeah.
And so it's really interesting. But, so that's the story of Rusalka. So there's a question here that I want to direct to Elias here. And that is, what inspires you about this piece? I know that this particular piece is one that you found quite inspirational. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, I find many pieces inspirational, but that one surely is very inspirational. Or I just love it because it's all the things that we just spoke about. I think there's so much in there underlying. It has an enormous depth about all the big questions that we have in our lives or as humans, like a father-daughter relationship, but also this, I call it like a clash of cultures. And I come from a family with two cultures, my mother Japanese, my father German, and I feel that is something that is very, very present in this piece, that love brings two people together, but then you have to sort out, because you bring all that along into a relationship, and you enter it with all this dream, like this is how it's gonna work out, but then there are like the realities of society, the realities of how we are built through a certain background or a culture where we come from. And I find one key in this piece is that Rusalka, when she is allowed to enter the human world through Yeji Baba, there's Jill here, you can't see her, but Jill is just looking through the window. When Rusalka is allowed to enter the world, she can't speak, she's mute. And I think that is another thing, because then we talk about what is language, what is communication, how important is that. And so it raises the big question, is love always bound for tragedy? And I know we all love to follow the storylines of Hollywood movies or Disney movies from maybe like many years ago, but that the love always has a chance to end happily or have a happily ever after. And so I think this is what I love, and so to bring that into the music, what I think is wonderful, really wonderful, is how Dvorak so clearly, with his genius, ability to adapt, to write music that sounds like nature. So to describe this world of Rusalka, of the water world with an absolute purity and the beauty of simplicity, and then to describe musically this human world, because he could also write in a different way. The human world is a much more complicated, much more sophisticated maybe music that, and so he captures that these two worlds in a brilliant way, at the same time very subtle, so that it's not like how you say, with a sledgehammer, but it's absolutely clear once you look at it. And I think so altogether it has a beautiful arc, a beautiful coloring through the music and the story. So music and story are absolutely imminent. How do you say it? Like
Intertwined.
Yeah, intertwined exactly in the most perfect way, and I think that's great about this piece. Yeah.
This is your first time conducting it, is it?
It's my second time.
Second time.
Yeah.
So, okay, so you know the music really well then. What section really gets you going?
Yeah.
Like which one? Like because you know it. I dare say.
I'm just getting nervous. I'm just getting
He's so excited. Too excited about it. He's really curious.
He's gonna talk about my aria. Is he gonna?
So, is there one section that you're like, yeah, like you, because you have to know it better than we do, because you also know the instrumental parts too. So that's also fair game if you choose it.
I have to know other things, but I think that's what's great. Honestly, I think that's what's because there are many places that just get me going. I think it's wonderful that very early on we come into already the overture is just gorgeous, and then we have the Song to the Moon in Act 1. Then we have got the whole Yeji Baba scene. We've got Yeji Baba's spell aria. Still in Act 1, we've got the wonderful When the Prince Comes with an enormous, beautiful finale for the.
You're not picking one.
No, not picking one because it's honestly it's one of those operas. It's one of those operas like Rigoletto or others is just an example, but where you just go from highlight to highlight.
Yeah.
Once you get to know it, there's like. There's not a single moment in this opera where it's not just absolutely on the spot, perfect, wonderful music that in whichever way gets you going. And this is what I love about it. So you enter it and you're on the ride, and yeah. And I would be interested, for you as singers, because you, as Karen says, like you don't do the whole story, but how much, like when you perform it. Or even when we rehearse it, because we all know being a professional is not being in the audience, there's a difference. But how much do you feel like the arc of the whole opera when you're performing?
Well, I think I mean, at least the way I think about it, I tell the story for myself, like from the perspective of my character. So from his perspective, everything was going normal until, this sea creature became human.
Creature, thank you very much.
Yeah, yes.
You're tricky with the humans, so be careful what you say.
No salt. Human-esque. But I think certainly when I'm first learning it, I'm considering all of the story and all of the different elements and the plot as a whole. But then when I'm in the process of playing the character, I want to only think about the information that I have.
Sure.
And sort of purposely forget the other stuff. Like, I don't know about Yeji Baba. I don't know about the magical curse. I understand the consequences near the end. But up until then, she's just a person who's not speaking for some reason.
Sure.
And so, and he kind of like takes this like optimist posture at the beginning, like, okay, if you're not going to talk, maybe I can kiss the words into your mouth. Which is,
if I had to die.
Is there, for example, Karen, you're on stage a lot in this piece, but there will also be brief moments when you're not on stage, which means that you are in the dressing room, basically. Now, this is what you usually what you do. I'm talking during the performance, and is that like when you go into the dressing room? Is that like you're absolutely just professionally focused on what you have to do next, like almost like you switch off the storyline because it's a different focus that you need, or is in some way I don't know. Do you, for
Like,
example,
do you carry
do you have the volume up for what's going on stage? And you know, this would be interesting.
I think especially with the way that this show is being staged, I don't actually get that much time.
Yeah.
Like most of the time I'm doing quick changes, I think. So I'm on the side of the stage. I think if it's about a quick change, then I'm definitely focused. Until
Maybe
I'm trying
you
to
just
make their job
explain,
easy.
because maybe not everyone knows what's a quick change.
A quick change, so it kind of sounds like you run into a booth and 3 people come at you with your next clothing, and you have maybe a minute or 2 to get changed with and often it's with hair and makeup also being changed, and you're just trying to do your best to not get in their way of doing the job. But yeah, I am grooving out to the music.
Are you?
When I hear it. I love staying within the story.
Yeah.
Because I do think it's important to go. Rusalka definitely has to go through everything in order for this evolution to make sense.
Yeah.
So are you Karen the soprano, or are you Rusalka?
Yeah, you stay in character when you're off stage. Like, do you follow and keep all of that, or do you are you able to go off stage and
I mean, I'm able to go off stage and have a candy bar if you need.
Sure.
But I will usually it's I'm always aware of what's being played.
You stay in the space of it?
I try to.
Yeah.
And then right before going on, you really take a moment to fully come back to it. Do you guys do something different?
No, I turn the character off completely. I don't like
go
to
off stage?
I find being the prince extremely stressful, and so I am fully Kevin. Checking the football scores and not interested in opera in any way, except as a support to my colleagues.
Yeah,
but it's not like I'm living and dying with the next turn in the plot.
110% depends on the role for me, actually. This role, I'm fairly present throughout the opera, so I try to stay fairly present even when I'm off stage, just to be right back on. But if I'm singing Commendatore, for instance, like Giovanni, I might go watch an entire football game and then come back.
Nice.
So I think it just varies, and I think we have to wrap up. We've gotten our cue here, but can I ask one last question? Because you brought up something. So here's the question that I want to end with, and this is very curious to me, because you said, is love doomed to end in tragedy, or can it be happily ever after? So everybody, happily ever after or doomed to tragedy, and why? Really quick. 30 seconds.
It's totally possible to be happily ever after. With a culture clash, it makes it hard. But isn't it interesting that they seem totally committed to, like we often see in this sort of culture clash situation, to sort of powering through the obstacles. I find that fascinating.
All right.
I believe in a happily ever after, but with a lot of work. And I think Act 2 shows that they didn't put in the work for it. And that's what definitely defines whether or not it's going to be successful.
All right.
I agree with that. I also believe in happily ever after. And I think because we brought up the culture clash thing, I think in the end, every time 2 people come together or more people come together, there's always a culture clash, because we always come, even if we spend the same language, even if we usually, hopefully we come from 2 different families, and 2 different families means 2 different cultures in itself, and sometimes so I absolutely believe the key is communication, and this is why I love this opera so much, because it brings up this topic so much. What about you?
Well, so this is amazing. It's a very Vodnik answer. Are you ready? I believe in happily now, but the promise of future pain. And here's why. You cannot love someone without eventually having to say goodbye to them, unless you wind up being one of these couples that dies simultaneously holding hands at a ripe old age. So loving someone means I will embrace the journey for however long we have it, and there will come a time where we have to part. So that pain is inevitable. And so one of the things that I actually love about this story, and maybe we can wrap up with this, is you actually do see that they're happy when he finds her in the woods, And then we get Act 2, where he makes all kinds of mistakes. And then at the end, we get the eventual parting of what it is to love anyone.
Just sort of accelerated all that.
Yep.
That's a beautiful last words for it. Yeah.
Thanks for having coffee with me.
Yeah, thanks for having
Come
coffee
see
with
the
us.
opera.
Cheers.
Enjoy it.
Cheers.
It was very, very
Let's go run the show.
nice to
Yeah.
talk
Yeah, now
with
we have to
you.
go rehearsal.
Cheers.
So,
Cheers.
see you in 5 minutes.